In the name of God, Creator, Christ, and Holy Comforter. Amen. You may be seated. One of my earliest memories of church was when I was 8 years old. I was sitting in Sunday school and I asked a question. I remember being serious and wanting a serious answer, but instead was met with something dismissive. I decided right then and there that religion was stupid and I didn't believe any of it. Oh, I still attended church, sang, even served as a choir assistant for many years, but I tuned out the readings and I read during the sermons. I wasn't there because I wanted to be. It was an obligation, something my parents wanted for my brothers and me. My initial rejection of religion came from what was probably for that adult a normal Sunday. I was simply inquisitive and seeking to satisfy my hunger for knowledge and my desire to understand this complex thing we've called Christianity. But my genuine interest was met with a wall, and it took me 23 years to find my voice again where religion was concerned. Why am I talking about this today? Well, it is the final Sunday of Pride Month, an entire month where we uplift and celebrate the LGBTQ+ community, highlighting their voices and remembering all of those who fought for visibility, equality, and respect. With the increase in anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ legislation across the country, we face the very real risk of silencing millions of voices once again. This thematic idea of silence and finding one's voice also runs through the readings today, especially 1 Samuel and Matthew. Both focus on women who are fighting to be heard and seen where they are, and in both stories, they are ultimately rewarded for their faith and their fight. We started our readings today with part of the story of Hannah, Samuel's mother. Samuel eventually goes on to be one of the great leaders of the Israelites, but his birth is not assured, not initially. Hannah is the first wife of Elkanah, and a key expectation of women of the time would have been to bear children, something Hannah is unable to do. Hannah's barrenness is a very sensitive topic for her, but it is one about which her husband does not care. He loves her very much, even giving her a double portion of the ritual sacrifice. To him, it does not matter that she has been unable to conceive a child, and he shows her this as best he can through his actions, even though his kindness doesn't solve her sadness. Even when Hannah cannot properly convey her sorrow to her husband, he never deserts or harms her. However, Peninnah, second wife, appears possibly jealous or maybe just spiteful, as she reminds Hannah often of their differences, and especially of Peninnah's ability to bear children, because the wellspring of life had closed Hannah's womb. So we have a woman whose husband doesn't understand why she is unhappy, and whose rival is using her perceived weakness against her. So is it any wonder that Hannah turns to God in her moment of isolation and pain? Her spoken words have had no effect on her life that we can see, so she turns to the words of her heart, praying desperately for a child and promising to dedicate him to God if her prayers should be answered. How many times have we found ourselves at our lowest emotional points and, not knowing where or who else to turn to, turned to God in the hopes that she might hear us? Perhaps this is why my favorite of Dr. Gaffney's translations for God is the God who hears, invoking that specific aspect of God as listener. When your cries for help fall on a deaf world, what is more hopeful than a God who will hear you, no matter what you have to say or where you are or how much pain you're in? And then, as if Hannah isn't having a hard enough time, the priest Eli takes one look at her, mouth moving silently as she prays from her heart, assumes she is drunk and scolds her. This poor woman is in a deeply painful place as she bears her soul to God, and the other human in the temple tries to throw up a wall between Hannah and God. But here is where Hannah's faith shines through. She corrects his erroneous assumption and speaks her truth. And for Hannah, her spoken words finally have an effect with the full weight of her faith and prayers behind them. Because Eli's initial response is reactionary, assuming Hannah is drunk simply from the appearance of her actions, he cannot respond in the way that she needs. It isn't until Hannah speaks to the truth of her pain, to the depth of her grief, that Eli is able to hold space for her. He drops the wall and blesses her, assuring Hannah that the God of Israel will grant the petition she has made. The reading ends with the detail that Hannah's countenance is sad no longer, which to me reads as hopeful. Her prayer is for a child, which means that when her prayer is answered, it's what she wants more than anything in the world. Her faith sees her through the walls around her, the barriers other humans try to put up between her and God, something we need to remember as we follow Jesus in this often harsh and cruel world. Our faith, our trust in the God who hears, the Holy One of old, and in his Son and in the Holy Spirit, that helps guide us to the truth of our very lives. I mentioned earlier that the thematic idea of silence and finding one's voice is present in the reading from Matthew as well. But before we dive in, I want to name what stuck out to me the first time I read it. Jesus doesn't come across too good in this one, does he? To be honest, he's kind of a jerk. Normally, we think of Jesus as a constantly kind and compassionate person, willing to listen and hold space for all who struggle against oppression. But when this Canaanite woman approaches him, he throws up a wall instead of responding. So why? Why does he do this? Well, let's take a quick look at Jesus' past few weeks up to this point. His cousin John the Baptist was beheaded. Jesus performed many healings, fed the 5,000, walked on water, debated with Pharisees and scholars, and now he has traveled north of Galilee to Tyre and Sidon. This poor, introverted human being is likely exhausted, hasn't been able to get much time to himself, needs to grieve the death of his relative, and is constantly beset by people who want something from him. I mean, have any of you ever been hangry before? Or so tired that if someone talks to you, you'll burst into tears? Is it any wonder he snaps? Now, that's not to excuse his action here. He's still quite rude, but it's more to explain where he is when he meets the unnamed woman. Matthew draws attention to her heritage as a Canaanite because he was writing for a primarily Jewish audience, and Tyre and Sidon had a much higher non-Jewish population. Jesus is coming here to teach and heal, as he says, the lost sheep of the house of Israel. This woman isn't of the house of Israel, so why would she be chasing after the Messiah of the Jews? Why Jesus? Because Jesus can heal. Because Jesus can perform miracles. Because as we often see when people come to Jesus for help, they have no other options left. She has likely exhausted every avenue she has to heal her daughter, and now all she has left is faith. Faith in the rumors and stories of a teacher and his disciples who just might be able to help her. And just like Hannah, when this woman is met with a wall, she pushes back with her faith. Jesus says that the woman should not take what is meant for the Israelites. She responds that even the dogs can hope for scraps from the table. Even if Jesus isn't there for her, she still has hope and faith for just a tiny scrap of the blessings that he, and through him, God, promises. Her response helps Jesus, like Eli, to check himself and respond, rather than continuing to react. And like Hannah, her faith and her fight are rewarded since her daughter is healed in that moment. This highlights for us, as it would have for the audience of the time, that the promises of God are not limited simply to a small group, but are open to all who wish to know that infinite love and live their lives in that model of radical love. Neither Eli nor Jesus is at his best in these readings, but when challenged by women speaking from a place of passionate faith, each recognizes his mistake and is able to witness each woman where she is and how she needs. In their humanity and their faith combined, that's when the miracles happen. For Hannah, it's the hope and promise of her wish for a son. And for the Canaanite woman, her daughter is healed from demonic possession. When we can speak fully in our faith and our humanity, and when we can recognize that in each other, anything can happen. I didn't fully have my voice or my faith as a child, but that was okay. I explored things in my own time and at the pace I needed, and I ultimately found the people who were willing to witness me instead of putting up those walls. So I invite you this week to witness those around you, to really see and hear them. Recognize, even if you don't know specifics, that each person is a fully complex, imperfect human, and that many people are still trying to find their voices. Amen.